Every day, film and TV productions throw out thousands of untouched meals. Foodstream's Movie Meals Rescue turns that surplus into community impact already trusted by major film and TV studios. If your production has extra food, don't waste it. Rescue it. Learn more at foodstreamnetwork.com.
If I fail miserably at this, nobody's ever going to hire me again. And then I reminded myself, I don't need anybody to hire me again because I hire myself. I create opportunities for myself. My freaking mother came to this country through obstacle hoops. Literally risked her life to come here to reinvent herself and give herself and us opportunities. So did my entire family. I grew up seeing all these strong women constantly reinventing themselves and going against all odds. And I was like, listen, if anything else, I go back to cleaning houses. I'm really good at that.
Welcome to the Ambition Code. I am so excited about today's episode because my guest is truly one of my favorite people ever. Johanna Salazar is someone I admire deeply, adore completely, and have had the great privilege of building alongside of her. She is a first-class disruptor who trusts her instincts with a superpower vision and isn't afraid to take risks just because no one has done it before her. Yes, she's a media executive, a creative technologist, a producer, a founder, a strategist, a reoccurring speaker of the Television Academy, but she is also one of those rare people who can see the future light years before the rest of us do. Across more than 2 decades in media and entertainment, Johanna has worked at the highest levels of production, innovation, and storytelling across some of the most influential brands and platforms in the business. But Johanna's story is not simply a story about ascending in your media career. It's also a story about what it means to carry something bigger than yourself. Johanna was one of the first women in her family to go to college. Her origin story is incredible, and that is not a small detail. That is one of those life facts that holds a whole world inside of it. The sacrifice, the expectation, the pressure, the pride, the responsibility, and the invisible weight of knowing that when you walk through a door, you may be carrying generations with you. That kind of ambition is different. It's not just about getting somewhere. It's about honoring where you came from while building something no one before you had the chance to imagine. And I think that sense of responsibility to her family, to her work, to the future, and to the people her work can serve is part of what makes Johanna so powerful. Johanna is the creator and the host of the Media Machine podcast. She's also the co-founder of Foodstream Network, a powerful social impact platform working at the intersection of food insecurity, technology, education, and dignity, proving that ambition can be so much bigger than personal achievement. It can become a service, and it can become a real meaningful way to help other people. And what I love about Johanna is that her ambition has never been one-dimensional. She's a builder, yes, a systems thinker, absolutely, but she is also a woman who has done the deeper work, the human work, of asking who she had to become in order to build the life she's living now. She has spoken openly about fear, failure, gratitude, self-belief, and the stories we carry around in our own minds, the ones that can either push us forward or keep us standing on the edge of our own life. And sometimes, of course, the biggest obstacle is not the industry, it's not the market, because sometimes the biggest obstacle is part of ourselves that has not yet learned that we have every right to be bold, take chances, build the thing, change the plan, and carve out your own path. So today we are talking about ambition and courage to the fullest form. The work, the life, the risks, and the reinventions. The purpose, the partnership, the fear, the failure, the responsibility we carry, and the future Johanna continues to build with both vision and heart. This is a conversation about what it means to stop waiting for permission, to trust the life that is asking more of you, and to remember always that your life is waiting for you. Johanna, welcome to the Ambition Code.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm so grateful. I love everything you just said. And also so proud of you, Julie. This is your podcast. Yay!
Yeah. I learned everything from you, girl, and all those things are true. You lead with such intelligence and heart. There's not a lot of people that do that. You are putting your power to work. We talked about this a long time ago, but you actually brought it up that some people feel like if you look at the 7-year-old version of yourself, you get a sense of the adult you'll become. What were you like at 7?
Wow. Okay, I think you're going to make me cry. I don't know why, but it's really funny because my brother and sister and family make fun of me because they say that I say everything happened at 7 and 12 and that was it. Like, I don't know why I have memories that I don't know if they're true or not. Most of my memories are from when I was 7 or 12. And I think those were critical years in my life for many reasons. But when I was 7, I came to this country, to the United States. I was born in Colombia, in South America, Colombia. So my mom left us when we were in Colombia, not because she wanted to, but because she had to. She had to come to this country. She felt a sense of responsibility as a single mother to her two children, her two daughters, my sister and me. We were 4 and 5-year-old little girls. My mom told me this. She said that my grandmother was the one that said, "You are going to get these girls out of this country and into opportunity. You're going to go to the United States, you're going to work hard, and then you're going to come back for these girls. And I'm going to take care of them until you come back." And that's what she did. Oh my God, getting emotional. Well, when we came to this country, it was magical. One, because it felt like we were coming to be reunited with our mother, as a 4-year-old child, for your mother to not be around and your father, because my father
Right.
wasn't there either. That's when traumas start developing. And I think I developed a sense of abandonment, but also of gratitude and like really valuing relationships with family. So when we finally were reunited with my mother in this country, it just felt like finally I was with her. But then on the flip side, we left my grandmother behind. And
Mm.
that was another traumatic moment. But so you asked, who was the 7-year-old Joe? I think she was a little girl who learned really quickly how to, like, the sense of family. Family is everything. And so that's always been a huge value of mine. Family is everything to me. Like my family, anybody in my family will call me at any time, any day, and I will drop everything I'm doing for my family. That's just, I think that was born at that time. And then the other thing is, I think that sense of family first mindset started at around that time. So I think that's who little 7-year-old Johanna was. We were told that my mother came to the States to give us a better life, and that the States was a land of opportunity. So I think we thought this was just like a magical place, and it was just
Mhm.
amazing. So that was 7-year-old Joe.
Did
Little
your grandmother end up coming to the States?
Yes, eventually, thank God. And then eventually, when I went to college, I was going to say she became my roommate, but I became her roommate because I moved in with
Wow.
her. Where most kids go to the dorms or room with friends, I roomed with my grandmother. And it was amazing because she was this little Colombian lady who was adorable and charismatic and lovable and loving. And she was just
Mhm.
like the most incredible human on the planet. She didn't speak English and she was an older woman and she would take me to college. We had to take like 3 trains and 2 buses. And it took us like 2.5 hours to go from Brooklyn to Queens because I went to St. John's University. It was really funny. Eventually, my grandmother came and then we became roommates when I went to college.
That is so cute. So that really explains the foundation of your commitment to people around you because people were committed to you so young and your family and
I
treating people
think
like
so.
family.
I think so. I feel like I love people and my family is unique. And I never knew that. I just thought that's how all families were. And it's really funny because my little brother, who's 7 years younger than me, but he's always my little brother, he said to me that when he went to college, his friends were like, "Wait, you're really close with your family. That's weird." And I was like, "What? People are saying that?" He's like, "Yeah, you have a good relationship with your sisters. They're like your best friends. That's weird. Wait, you have a good relationship with your mom and your dad? That's weird." And then he would describe the way my whole family is. And apparently people thought it was weird. I thought that's how all families were, very close and loving to each other.
It's funny because you guys, the move to America is enormous. Any change for a child, even moving houses, is enormous because home signifies something so enormous for them. So you guys moved countries, and that probably made you so close. And again, like created this foundation for commitment to the people around you.
I never
Yeah.
thought about that. That's so crazy. Just as you were saying that, I was thinking about how the move to this country was. So, my mom's oldest sister, she came first and she worked
Mm.
hard and then she sent money to bring the next one. And then those 2
Wow,
worked hard and then they sent money to bring the third one. And then those 3 worked hard and sent money to bring the fourth. And that's how they all came.
that's
But
amazing.
you're right, I never thought of that. And all of that because of my grandmother. My grandmother was always the one she married really young, and she had 11, 12 kids. She started having kids at, like, 14, and back
Um,
in the day, I guess, that was really normal, I guess. And her husband died of old age when she was 40. She was, like, super young and had 11 kids.
my God.
Yeah, apparently she's the one that was pushing and telling everybody, "No, you're gonna do this. No, you're gonna do that." Because otherwise, they would have stayed in Colombia and just had I don't know what kind of life we would have had, but they
Right.
knew that this was the land of opportunity, so that's why they all came. Somebody said to me one time, "Imagine if you would have been raised in Colombia." I said, "Yeah, I would have been the president of Colombia." They were like, "Oh, that's not what I was thinking. I was thinking you would have grown up like in a brothel or something."
I'm like, "What? In the
Who's this
brothel?" And my
person?
answer was like, "No, I would have been the president of Colombia." He was
Right.
like,
Oh my gosh. Well, the fact is that the women in your family were so ambitious. They're like, that's it. You're taking your girls, to America. They're going to have a better opportunity. So do you feel like you inherited your ambition or you learned it? Like, did you start seeing it when you were 7?
I don't think it was ambition. I think it was survival. And
Yeah.
the reason why I say that is because these are people who are living there's not a lot of opportunity at that time when they all started coming to the States in the late 70s and early 80s. And I was born in 80. So in our circumstances, my grandmother was a single mom with all these kids, and then those kids started having kids. And that's when they started, a lot of them were single women, unfortunately, in
Yeah.
my family. So it was a big matriarch. So I don't think it was ambition that I saw. I think I saw survival. Actually, I think ambition for me started. I don't know if ambition was something that starts. I don't know if ambition is something that you acquire. Because I've never really thought about this. This is so good. This is why I love your podcast. Thank you.
Yay.
I don't know if ambition is nurtured or it's within us, nature. Because when I think back and I think of ambition, I used to clean houses when I was young. My mom used to clean house. She was a house cleaner in the Hamptons. And so I would go clean houses with her. And there's one house that they asked if I would stay and work for the whole summer. And at the time, I was already working as a bus girl because I was 16.
Mm.
So I already had a job, but I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come and I'll clean. Anyways, the owners of the house, it was a couple, Fred Mayerson. I will never forget that man. He was like a father figure to me, and his wife, Donna. They had a daughter my age. And I think they saw that, they probably felt endeared by me. I was young. I was the
Mhm.
same age as their daughter. And so they gave me an opportunity. And this man, Fred Mayerson, he would sit once a month with me and just tell me about his life and then say, okay, tell me about school. What are your goals? What are your plans? Tell me about life. Where are you going? Like he was that kind of man. Like, okay, come on,
Mhm.
we don't have time for this. And then I would ask him questions and then he would tell me about like the things he achieved. We would ask each other questions. I want to credit him for me having ambition. I think he woke in me thinking big. And
Mhm.
I don't know if that's something I had before him, but it definitely is something that I remember having after my conversations with Fred. It's almost like that book, Tuesdays with Maury.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like it
Mhm.
was like Saturdays with Fred or Fridays with Fred. That sounds better.
Well, he obviously really cared about you to sit down and ask you those questions so you could ask yourself them.
He and his wife, they are incredible people, and I stayed in touch with them throughout the years, and actually, I haven't talked to them in a while, but yeah, this family really had a huge impact on me. So when you ask about ambition, it didn't really come from my grandmother or my family. It came from, I think, that family, especially Fred. But what I did see, I think, was a sense of survival and responsibility. That's what
Mhm.
I think I got from my family because my family's, besides being very tight and family driven, it's a huge sense of responsibility and hardworking people. So that's what I got from them.
It's funny having raised 2 boys, it's like family is also your village. Your
Mhm,
village steps in and becomes your family. It's like
mhm.
and you don't even sometimes ask for it. Like, you reminded me of our first nanny, Eddie's, shout out to Eddie's Gonzalez. She would bring her son with her, who is 11, when my kids were young, toddlers and babies, and his name is Josh. Shout out to Josh. And Josh became their brother that they didn't have. Like, love Josh. Like, Josh is everything to them. Aiden, my older son, used to do projects and say his brother Josh, all because Eddie's would bring him. And she came from another country and she, found her way to amazing families who she helped with their kids. But my older son just graduated and they both came to his graduation and all he wanted was for them to be there. Like, he wanted everyone else to come, but like he really wanted Josh and Eddie's to come and they came because they had such an impact on him growing up.
Oh, yeah, it makes a big difference.
So let's fast forward to college. You were one of the first ones that went to college. So what did that mean to you?
It's so funny because college was not a question in my mind. College was like, I knew I was going to go there and I was going to get out quickly because I was on a mission. So I feel like I've always been on a mission. I don't know for what, but I've been on a mission. And I would go to class and I would sit in the front. I would sit in the front.
Why
And
am I
sometimes
not surprised?
I don't think I would even look around at who my classmates were unless we had to do projects and we had to do projects with them. with each other. But it was like I would be at the front taking notes, raising my hand. I think I was that kid that was like, me, and the professor was like, anybody else? I think that was me. Tracks. Yeah. And then after I would go to school, like I would cram as many classes as I could into like, 2, 3 days or whatever I could do. I would be in school from the earliest I could to the latest that I could. And then I would have a job somewhere because I always had a job. I had to pay for stuff. And then I was still cleaning Fred's house. And
Wow.
so I would clean on the weekends or whenever they would come out. And then I would always clean in the summers. So college for me felt like it was me on a mission to just get to the next level. And I did do a study abroad, which was really funny because I literally was like, I heard about it, I found out about it. It was in Italy. I didn't know anybody in Italy or in this program. And I just went and I signed up and they were like, well, I don't know if you have time. This is like the application's due tomorrow and you have like 10 steps that you need to do before I was like, just give me the application. I will get it done. And I got it done. But the funny thing is, that's my memory of college, that I just was on a mission and I was in a rush.
Did you, because you were the first generation, you and your sister, to grow up here, do you feel like you had any pressure to succeed, or that was all within yourself, and or not, or purpose or responsibility?
I definitely felt a massive sense of responsibility to the hardship and to the risks and the sacrifices that my family made. It's funny, I think about this a lot because I look at my nieces and nephews and they have very different lives to what we had. And they don't have any of that. I don't know if I want them to have it, but deep down, I feel like, yes, I felt a huge sense of responsibility and I needed to give back to the sacrifices that my grandmother and my mother made. My mother had to leave us. So we felt that sense of like, you start valuing your family, your parents more because you don't know when they're going to leave you or be taken from you. And maybe
Wow.
this generation doesn't feel that because they have other pressures and other things that they're going through.
I'm curious how, given your background, how has it been to watch what's been going on with immigration, with ICE in this country?
It's really personal because on one end, we were brought to this country legally and we have done everything right to earn our place in this society and we feel like we're from here and we give back as much as we can and we give back even more. When I think of the border and when I think of kicking out the immigrants, I'm an immigrant. So it's hard to feel like I'm a hypocrite if I would go on that side of the argument. But on the other side, I do respect and value laws and regulations. And I think that people should try their best to do things the right way. But I can't be a hypocrite because most of my family didn't come to this country legally.
Hmm.
They eventually were legalized and everybody became a legal citizen of this country. And all of them love this country. This is the country they've been in most of their lives and they're good citizens. They give back and they are good US citizens. But it's personal because the rhetoric, this country's made up of immigrants. I feel like there's a disconnect between survival and there's a disconnect between like being empathetic to what the rest of the world goes through. And it's a tough topic because there's so much going on. And when you see those videos about the ICE raids and all that stuff,
Hmm.
I remember being in Montauk when I was maybe 12 years old. I remember everything was at 7 or 12. I remember being in Montauk at 12 and hiding in the bathtub with my aunt, her two girls, my little brother, my sister, and I. We were just standing in the bathtub with the curtain closed, like scared
Wow.
because apparently ICE, or at the time it was La Migra, immigration, was in Montauk. They were in town and everybody was afraid. All the immigrants were afraid that they were going to be taken. And there was a lot of misinformation and there was a lot of just people thought that they were going to come in, take the parent and leave the kids. So my aunt was so scared that they were going to come take her and she would be removed, taken away from her kids. So I grew up seeing that.
Yeah.
I was in hiding because of immigration. And I'm very sympathetic to the families that are going through this on both sides. It's tough. It's tough.
A lot of fear for a child to have,
It's a lot of fear for a child to have 100%. And
especially standing in a bathtub. Can't even imagine.
Yeah, yeah. And then you read all these stories today that these kids are being taken with the parents. I mean, thank God they're taken, that they're not being separated, but then you hear that they are being separated and you hear that there's all these children in jails. So
Yeah.
it's terrifying. That could have been me.
Yeah. I think the laws and rules and regulations need a massive overhaul, but that is for a different podcast.
Yeah.
But your foundation is so interesting, considering all that you've done now, where you started and what's important to you and what has driven you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so let's fast forward to college. Okay, after college, actually, what was your first big break for when you took the step from college into the rest of your career?
It's so funny because I went to school for journalism and international studies. You and I talked about
Mhm.
this. And
Mhm.
I saw myself working for CNN or one big news outlet who would send me to cover the war. I say CNN, but really I wanted to work at Telemundo or Univision. Like that's where I wanted to work because I grew up in Montauk. I grew up in the Hamptons where at the time there were very few of us Latinos and there was no Latin television, not where we were. It was in
Mhm.
Queens. It was like you could see Telemundo, Univision, and when you got into the city, but we didn't have the channel out there. It's so crazy. So I was like, I want to work in Spanish television, and then eventually the channels came out there. And then I remember I went to drop off my resume because I didn't know how to get an internship at these places. And then Fred Mayerson and his wife, they were like, "What do you want to do? And what's next for you?" I was like, "Well, I'm going to school for journalism, so I want to work in television, but I want to work in Spanish television." And they didn't know anybody. These are very, very, very wealthy people, and they were like, "Okay, we'll see what we can do to help you." And then they came back and they're like, "We don't know anybody at Telemundo Univision, but we know somebody at MTV." And I was, "Oh my God, no, I'm not allowed to watch MTV."
That's
I'll get
funny.
in trouble. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I sent my resume and to a girl who worked in wardrobe and she passed my
That's funny.
resume to the lady that at the time it was one person who was responsible for hiring all the positions, Suzanne Marino. And so when I
I
went to
know
the
her.
interview, do you remember her?
Yeah, mine was Jeanette Primus, and I think that she handed over to Suzanne.
I think Suzanne worked for Jeanette or Jeanette worked for Suzanne. I don't remember. Yeah. Anyways, so then I got there. They hired me as an intern. And then they tell you where you're going to intern. And some people go to TRL or the studio or
Mhm.
tentpole or production or whatever. And then they put me with Suzanne. I was like,
So wait, you were in charge of organizing the internships?
well, then I didn't realize that that was actually a big deal. That the boss picked me to be her intern, where
Uh-huh.
I was over here like, oh, I don't get to be in the studio. Everybody else got to rotate and I got
Mhm.
to work for Suzanne. But Suzanne's assistant would go on vacation and I would fill in for her
Mhm.
as an intern. So I was like, I wasn't getting it. And then one time I was like, can I rotate? Can I just go somewhere for like a week? And they would let me do that. But yeah, it was amazing. So long story short, that was probably that breaking point for me, like that moment where things changed. And I
Mhm.
remember walking when I went for my internship interview. I stood outside of in Times Square and I looked up at the building and I started crying because I was like, I'm the daughter of a cleaning lady. I'm a cleaning lady. This is not for me. Like this is not what people like me do. So I started crying and then I walk upstairs and I had like red eyes. But yeah, it was pretty amazing. And I think that was the first time that I felt that there was a shift in my life and I felt like I made it. That's it. I don't need to go anywhere else. I think if I would have been an assistant at MTV for the rest of my life, I would have been happy. I was a cleaning lady, you know?
So what advice do you have for somebody that was in the exact position to say, I'm only this, I could not ever have that, and then you get it because you took that step into the building?
Yeah. I'm going to give you an example or I'm going to answer that with a story. I had been working at MTV for a couple of years now. I was now a coordinator. I'm climbing
Right.
up in the world. I go
Right.
from an
That's what I
intern
thought. When I was a coordinator, it's
coordinator.
like, I'm no longer a PA or an assistant.
I've made it.
Right.
So I was a coordinator and I remember I was always the first one in, the last one out. And I was there working and the cleaning people came in. And I was really shocked when I look up and I see this very young girl who's like one of the cleaning ladies. So I'm looking at her. I'm like, at one point, I think she thought I was creepy because I just kept looking at her. And then she came over to clean and she was dusting and everything. And I said, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude, but how old are you? She's like, I'm 21 or I'm 22. I'm like, oh, you're in college. She's like, yeah. I'm like, and you're cleaning here? And then I realized quickly that I hope she's not feeling like I'm looking down on her. But then she said, yeah, and I said, well, no. The reason why I ask is because I used to be a cleaning lady. And she said, really? And I said, yes. And look at me now. I'm a big coordinator, production coordinator. Look at me now. And then I said to her, what are you going to school for? And she said, I think she said journalism or communications. And I said, wow, where are you going to intern anywhere? And she said, I don't know yet. I said, well, you should intern here. She said, really? I can do that? I said, absolutely. I know the right person. And she said, really? And I said, yep. I said, tomorrow when you come back, bring your resume. She's like, oh, my resume. I don't have a resume. I said, well, make a resume by tomorrow and come back and give it to me. And she's like, okay. And the next day she brought her resume, and she's probably, if she ever listens to me, I hope she remembers her side of it. And then hopefully she'll come on this show and talk about her side of it.
I love that.
I think you know her. I'm not going to say her name because I don't know, I don't want to tell people stories, but I'm telling my version. So long story short, she gave her resume, put it through, and then I think it was like a year or 2 years later. No, a year later, she came back and I was in the TRL studio, and she ran in and she found my office and she was like, Johanna. I'm like, hey, she's like, I'm interning here. And I was like, my
Oh
God.
I just got
She started
shivers.
interning. And then a year after that, and again, my timelines might be a little foggy. So hopefully she hears the story and hopefully she comes on, because I think she might. Anyways, so she comes back and she's like, Johanna, I got a job here. And I was like, long story short, I'm not going to tell you the company. She came back one time, and when I saw her name on the credits of the VMAs, I was blown
Oh my
away.
God.
I was blown away. She is now a top dog. She's worked across major tentpoles at Viacom. And other big tentpoles, and she's a big name now.
Well, please tell her I'd love to have her on this pod and hear from her perspective. That is an incredible story. And I feel like that's like really up there of amazing stories, but that was kind of the magic of MTV back then. Like you could do that. You had the power to do that, to like just make someone's dream come true.
I never thought of it like that, but I think I don't know if that was the power of MTV, but I think that was the power of giving back.
Mm-hmm.
And you're big on humanity. Like you're the humanity queen. And I think it's that. I think it's humanity. And I think that the more we lift each other up and the more we embrace our humanity, the more good we do in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody needs someone to help them out. I have a story like that too, which I'll talk about in a different episode. But I think that's amazing. And that so speaks to who you are. Like just look at what you did with me in the podcast. It's exactly the same thing with me going onto your podcast and giving me the opportunity of even seeing if I liked doing it. And now I have my own podcast. It's all because of you, girl.
You're going to be a podcasting queen soon.
We'll see. I hope so. Okay. Well, that's amazing. So you just honestly bridged your big break to giving someone else their big break, which was so beautifully said. So from there, I want to know what your biggest risk has been that you've taken in your career that you can remember.
Gosh, I have like a million of those. I feel like everything. So my mom said to me when I was young, when I was in college, I remember being on a call with my mom and crying because I would always call my mom crying, and my mom would be like, just come home. I'd be like, Mom, you're not supposed to tell me that. Like she would say, come home, like quit school and come back home.
Oh
I was
my
like,
God.
no.
She probably missed you.
No, I think she was like reverse psychology.
Right.
So she said to me one time, if you don't risk in life, you don't succeed. And I was like, deep, this woman is wise.
Right.
So I feel like my whole life has been a big risk. Where do I start? What's been one or many risks?
Let's take one from early in your career. What was a big risk you took that paid off?
That's a really good question. I mean, I guess from my background, believing in myself, just not taking the regular route and going on the regular path and getting a regular job. We did production, Julie. It's like a kid telling their parent they're going to become an actor. The parents are probably like, well, you sure you don't want to be a doctor or a lawyer?
Right.
An actor. Yeah, my mom, first of all, she had no idea what I did. Never. She never knew exactly what I did. And I don't think I did either. In production, you just never know. I think believing in myself, depending on how you look at it from my background, that was a pretty big risk. But if you don't take risks, you don't succeed.
Did you ever ask a question that led to something that was beyond your expectation?
Gosh, I always ask very risque questions. I have this very interesting lack of fear towards failure. I don't know what it is. I don't really fear failure. Early on, it came to me that I'd rather learn from my mistakes. Like I'd rather live life learning from my mistakes than living with regret. So that's why it's hard for me to ask because there's so many risks that I've taken and so many things that I've done. But yeah.
Well, you're pretty fearless. I mean, you'll be like, I want to do this, and then you're doing it. Like, how about we just do this? Like you did it with Foodstream. Tell us how that came to be with Foodstream.
Actually, before I answer that, you're reminding me, I think the biggest risk was leaving corporate America. Leaving my stable paycheck that came every week or other week or month whenever we got paid, and having health care, health insurance, and telling my mom after graduating from an expensive school, having this big investment in myself, and then going into corporate America and having a job that was paying me, and then leaving it to become an entrepreneur. That was a big risk. And that was the first time. And then I did it over and over and over again. And most recently, like I had a really I've done it actually a couple of times where I've had very stable positions, stable moments in my life. And for some reason, I don't know if it's masochist, like I just love inflicting pain on myself. Maybe that's what it is. I'm just a
Or you
big
believe you could do
masochist.
it. No,
What?
I think
I
you
keep
had this
doing it.
attitude to it. I know.
I think it's all of those, Julie. I'm constantly taking these big leaps of faith. And I think it's always because you just said it, because I believe in myself. Yeah. So going back to the food stream question, I've had a couple of different lives before this entrepreneurial life. I've become an entrepreneur multiple times in my life. I think I identify as a serial entrepreneur. I have multiple titles that I give myself. I make up titles all the time. You know that.
That's very entrepreneurial of you.
That's true. I definitely don't let anybody put me in a corner because I put myself in corners of leadership.
Yeah.
So
Like, what was the most important reinvention of your life?
I had so many. I think the most important is this one. It's very scary to work so hard towards one thing and towards becoming someone. And then, especially in your career, it's like you are this person and you go by titles and you go by your resume building. I've always been resume building because that's what we were taught to believe, like that really matters. And I don't know what it was, if the pandemic just made me feel like I could do whatever I want. I mean, I've always felt that. I've always felt that I could do whatever I want, and I've always felt that I can become whoever I want. But the past couple of years, and I think the podcast that I launched was really terrifying because I was putting myself out into the world in a way that I had never done before. I had never been so open and vulnerable and transparent and put myself in front of things. And the scariest part was that I thought, my network, my friends, my peers, my colleagues are going to judge me, like, because I'm not good enough. I'm not that good at this. Like, who am I to do this? Like, who do I think I am to do this? Number one, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not any of the things. You say it, that's what I thought. So that was huge. But then beyond that, I think that was my ego. No, I know that was my ego, but bigger than that was I felt if I fail miserably at this, nobody's ever going to hire me again. And then I reminded myself, I don't need anybody to hire me again because I'm not looking for a job. And that was like, wait, I'm not looking for a job. This is like the thought process that went in my head.
Right.
I'm not looking for a job because I make my own jobs. Like I make money move. I create opportunity. I'm an opportunity creator. And all of a sudden I felt like I had wings. So
Wow.
this is like a Red Bull commercial.
Yeah.
I felt like I had wings. I was like, first of all, if nobody ever hires me again, who gives an F? That's what I thought to myself. I don't care because I hire myself. I create opportunities for myself. And not just I create opportunities for myself, I create opportunities for others. My freaking mother came to this country through obstacle hoops. Like
Mhm.
literally risked her life to come here to reinvent herself and give herself and us opportunities. So did my entire family. So I grew up seeing all these strong women constantly reinventing themselves and going against all odds. And I was like, listen, if anything else, I go back to cleaning houses. I'm really good at that.
Interesting. The empowerment you give yourself is incredible. And it's just about framing the thoughts to yourself rather than falling to the fear of the worst case scenario. Like, what's the best case scenario? That's one of my favorite quotes is, well, what if I fail? But darling, what if you fly? Because you
I
have
love that.
exactly the same amount of chance of flying. So you lean into that.
And you know, your yoga mats, that's the one I got. I think that's the
Is
one I
it?
got. I think so. I think
It's a
that's the one I got.
It's the quote that I saw right before I walked into my Disney interview a couple years ago, and
I
I was
love it.
like, "Oh, yeah, I can do this. I'm nervous AF, but I can do this."
See, I want to hear all your stories. Enough about me, please.
No, more about you. So cut to the next scene. You're now an entrepreneur. You're building your own things. You've done it a few times. You did have a production company prior to this. But then when you started Foodstream, I love your story of how you actually came up with the idea to do it. So share that with us.
It's really funny because so Rich and I, Rich is my husband, he's my business partner. When everybody had 2 weeks off during the pandemic, when we all thought we had 2 weeks off, when then
Mhm.
we're going to go back to regular life, Rich and I were celebrating his birthday and we were having a glass of wine and we get a call, hey, can you come help us distribute meals tomorrow with World Central Kitchen? And I was like, sure. What time? 7 a.m.
Mhm.
And I was like, let me put this glass of wine down. I was like, I gotta be up. So yeah, the next morning I was like, yeah. So this is when we were all indoors and we thought, you got to be careful because if you go outside and you breathe the air, you're gonna die. So I had to sit down and talk to Rich about this. I'm like, it's gonna be very dangerous, but I'm gonna go and I'm gonna come back and take all my stuff off and jump in the shower. These are the conversations we're having
Right.
at the time. And a week or 2 weeks in, we were in a meeting with the whole World Central Kitchen team, and they said, we need to do farmers markets. Who do we know that would do that? And I said, well, my husband loves to farm and he loves vegetables. He's a gardener. He
I'll
gardens
volunteer
every day.
him.
And they said, okay, bring him in. So then we both started. So we were doing that for a while. And that put us in front of food insecurity in a way that we had never experienced before. And we felt so ignorant to all of it. And once you see problems, especially like real world problems, it's really hard to close your eyes again and be like, haha, I don't see you anymore.
Right.
It's really hard to do that. So
Mhm.
I remember I would get myself into all these kinds of meetings and all this stuff. And Rich does the same thing. So I remember sitting in a meeting and I swear it was like 50 people. Everybody there was touching food in some way, shape, or form. Government, policy, local community leaders, a local housing authority, low income housing, homeless shelters, like you name it, those people were on this call every week. And so I would sit there and listen, and it was just fascinating. And I was just like, I'd never experienced anything like this before. So when you sit there and you're listening to everybody talking about their issues and how they're tackling food insecurity and what they need and what they don't need, I remember this is very cliche, but I remember literally writing it. It was like a napkin or a white piece of paper. And I started mapping out just the groups that were on the call. And it started who the leader of the call was. And then I started mapping out the different organizations and then who was part of the organizations and then the names of the people. I started creating this diagram just for my own understanding. And then Rich would come home and then I would tell him, look at this. I was in this meeting and it was fascinating. And these are the people and blah, blah, blah. And this is what I learned. And then he would come and tell me about what he was learning and how because he was like literally meeting with farmers and meeting with all these organizations. And so was I. And I was looking at everything through a completely different lens, through the community-based organizations. And he was looking at the problem through the farmers and the local communities. And so we would kind of talk about all this. And then afterwards, after a year and a half, like our business was done. Like we lost, it was going to be our biggest money-making business year. And then we couldn't bring the business back. It was really sad. It was like a death. It was like a divorce. It was all the feelings.
Yeah.
So we
And this is your
decided that
production company.
this was a production company. It was called
Mhm.
Two Goats, and we were a creative technology studio. And we were out like doing anytime you saw like VR, XR experiences across like award shows and stuff like that. A lot of the times it was us. And so, especially for like Latino television. And
Mhm.
so we decided that we were going to do something about it, but it was more like a hobby, just like
Mhm.
people need food and people have food. Why don't we just connect them? What's the big deal? And let's get rid of the middleman. So then that's what we started doing. And we invested our own money in building a platform. And then when you build, you have to really get on the ground and listen to people and understand the pain points of who you're building for. So that's exactly what we were doing. So we built this first iteration of the platform. Over 800 people signed up. And then we started noticing that, okay, they sign up, but then the engagement drops. So then we started going back and listening and doing discovery conversations and empathy mapping. Empathy mapping is like when you call your customers and you listen to them and you write down, the questions that you're asking, you map out the answers, and then you do analysis of those answers. And so then that brought us to like another version of that idea. And we kept iterating. And then eventually it became Foodstream. And the thing that started out almost like a directory of people connecting to each other turned into a social network where people sign up and there's just conversations about food insecurity and sharing wins and stuff. And then after that, members of the organization of the platform came to us and said, can you help us with food education? So we started mapping the drivers out of food insecurity, our access, education, policy, health, and wellness. We started really educating ourselves and learning about this. And so we are now really focused on those pillars. The pillar, like there has to be access to food, there has to be education, but you can't have, healthy adults if you don't have healthy kids. And you can't teach adults how to be empathetic towards food insecurity and health and wellness without teaching children that first. So that's what we're building at Foodstream. We have a couple of lanes. There's the access, which is the network part of things, and there's learn, which is the education component, and then there's delivery. So we're actually doing something called movie meals, where we help film studios, big film studios, big ones that we all know and love. We help them rescue trays of food on a daily basis. And the food, it goes directly into the hands of the local community. So that is a beautiful program that came out of this experience. So it's like we're going back to our media roots and we're rescuing meals and putting in the hands of the community as quickly as possible. And it's just amazing.
I think it goes back further than that, girl. I think it goes back to your roots when you first came to
No.
the country. I mean, it's exactly what it is. You're helping versions of your family really get on their feet. It's really a beautiful thing.
Thank you. We did struggle with food insecurity when we were younger. Like we would eat pantry food. We would go to the church food pantries. And I think that that definitely probably has a lot to do with that. So, yeah.
Yeah. As we all navigate our careers, I think that it's really easy to do what you did earlier. Like, I'm just this. I don't deserve that. Like, beyond that, once you started going, what is one story you had to stop believing about yourself in order to move forward and achieve?
So many. One, I think the first one was don't wait to be allowed. Like, allow yourself. Don't wait for permission. Give yourself permission. I think that was the first biggest one. I don't know why. I never felt like I didn't belong in that room. Actually, no, I take that back. I did feel that often when I was younger. As I got older and started climbing that ladder, I think that was the thing that I overcame, that mindset that I don't belong in the room. And then I started believing that I did. And then I did. I was like, you couldn't get me out of the room. You can force me to not sit at that table. Like, remember at MTV, they would have those big meetings and everybody would go into the conference room.
Like a
and
program meeting.
any meeting, there was always big meetings, programming or the marketing or the tentpole meeting with all the cross-functional teams would come in. What happened when you walk in the meeting and there's the big, massive table and there's the seats against the wall, right? Who sits at the table, Julie? Tell me who sits at the table.
Department heads, producers.
Yeah. And who sits at the chairs against the wall?
Yeah, right. The coordinators and the assistants.
Everybody else.
Right.
Well, guess how many times I would sit at that table? When I was younger, never, obviously. I followed the rules. That's embarrassing. But then when I started letting go of why not me, I would sit at that fucking table. Can I curse in this podcast?
Yeah, totally.
I was like, sorry, SVP, I got here first.
I love that.
Yeah. I was like, no, I will sit at the table. And if there is no chair, I will pull up a chair. And if there's no chair, I'll stand up right next to you. And if there's no table, I'll make a table.
Yeah, you make the table. It's giving yourself permission is everything.
Yeah.
People do sometimes want to hold others down if they feel like you may rise above them. The whole point is to give people a chair at the table or take it yourself, like you said.
Exactly. I had a job, a project I did a couple years ago, and it was really funny. It was a sports project, and I was in the green room, and the talent we were on the air, and there was some mess in the room, and so I started picking it up and throwing it out because why not? And then the PA came in, and he started helping me, and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome, thank you." And he said something, and I was like, "Wait, and you said that or you did that?" I said something like that, and he was like, "Why? Why can't I?" And I remember thinking, this generation, I really like
Right.
them.
Or some people would be like, this generation is so full of themselves and they don't respect their
This was a
elders.
PA. I never, ever would
Yeah.
have spoken to a senior person that way when I was a PA. And I
Right.
never felt that like, I'm going to use
Right.
the word entitled, but
Yeah.
whatever it was confidence. This kid had confidence. And I was just like,
Uh-huh.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, those are the future leaders who have no fear.
They are. They are.
So go back to the girl who started at MTV and started producing, or even the woman that you gave the opportunity to. What's the advice you would give to somebody at that point, the younger version of yourself, as you're starting to blossom in your career?
I don't know if I would say give yourself permission. I think that'll come. I think I would say ask a lot of questions. Don't be afraid to listen. Let go of being so afraid to fail because that doesn't exist. We're always going to fall. And the only way we learn how to stand up straight is by learning how to stand up straight. Failure is a big one for me. I feel like I embraced it a long time ago. I think because I associate failure to mistakes. And I don't think mistakes are bad. I think regret is bad. Mistakes are not.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why I embrace failure so much because I think it's beautiful. It's just you fall. Like a kid falls. You don't yell at them because they fall, right? Like they're
Mm-hmm.
learning how to walk.
Yeah. Because you learn lessons from
Yeah.
failures.
Yeah. So I would tell young people that let go of being embarrassed. Let go of feeling like people are going to judge me. Who cares?
Right.
Who
Who
cares
cares?
if you get judged? Who cares if people make fun of you? Who cares?
Yeah.
Nobody cares. I always hear this. People say, don't worry about sounding stupid or whatever. Like nobody thinks about you more than you think about yourself.
Yeah.
So nobody cares about us as much as we care about ourselves. That's just the truth.
And also, you might get the attention of somebody who acknowledges that you're someone who is ready to take some steps, or you're bold, or you have a personality that needs to be heard.
Yeah. Or if nobody sees that, it's okay because you create those opportunities for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's good to be bold, but you still have to have respect for the people around you. I think like there's certain, like being polite is very important, but
Yeah, that's a given. That's a
yeah.
given. That's why I say don't be afraid to listen. I want people to especially young people, listen. Please
Yeah.
listen. And then
Yeah.
two, number one, listen. Number two, ask a lot of questions. And number three, don't embrace fear, embrace failure.
Yeah. So what does the future look like for you from here?
Amazing. I had a job and at the end my boss was like, "So what are you going to do next?" And I was like, "Take over the world." She was not expecting that.
Is you're going to be the president? You already said so.
Take over the world.
Perfect.
That's what I'm going to do, Julie. I'm going to take over the
You
world.
are.
This is a 7-year-old saying this to you. I'm going to take over the world.
Well, it's amazing when you don't have any fear when you're younger, right? You don't know what to be afraid of. You just know what you want to do.
Yeah, no, you don't have any fears. After 7 is maybe after 12 is when you start developing fears. I don't remember when, but 7 was just like amazing. You're taking over the world.
Thank you so much. It was so good to catch up with you and to hear your background I didn't know about, but it's such a beautiful story and I loved hearing it. And thank you for sharing it.
Thank you. Well, next I need to come on the Ambition Code and ask you all the same questions because I want to hear all your answers.
Okay, we will definitely do that. Thank you.
Thank you, honey. Everybody listen to the Ambition Code. Repost, share, like, because if you're ambitious, you need to listen to the Ambition Code.
Thank you, what she said. Thank you for joining us on the Ambition Code. I hope this conversation gave you the inspiration, clarity, and momentum to run through every open door in your life. The Ambition Code is created and executive produced by me, Julie Kelman Redding. Please like, subscribe, and tell us what you think. And remember, your life is waiting for you.